This morning, pay rise on the way for millions of Australians after the Fair Work Commission lifts the minimum wage. Inflation forecast to soar, the Reserve Bank's dire warning for a cost of living reality check. Lucky escape after a concrete mixer ploughs into a Sydney home. And an emergency declared in Queensland, crews battle a gas leak after a truck rolls over on a highway.
This is 7 News with Ann Sanders.
Good morning. The Fair Work Commission has awarded a pay rise to millions of Australians on the minimum wage, as the soaring cost of living coupled with inflation saw pay packets going backwards. Our political reporter Taylor Aiken is live in Canberra. Taylor, good morning. How high is the wage increase?
And good morning. Well, the Fair Work Commission going beyond expectations, awarding a 5.2% increase to the minimum wage. It is a significant decision by the Fair Work Commission, boosting workers' wages to $21.38 an hour, taking the national minimum wage to $812.60 a week from July 1st. The decision affects 2.7 million workers, many of whom have felt the cost of living crunch in recent months, with the Commission saying this decision will protect the real value of wages for the country's lowest paid workers. The government had been pushing for a wage rise at least in line with inflation, which is currently sitting at 5.1% but is expected to keep climbing. Unions had asked for as much as 5.5%, but businesses fear such a sharp spike will leave them hurting.
The union movement is really happy with this outcome. We think it's going to make a significant difference to the pressures that low-paid workers are under with cost of living rising.
That will be a very considerable burden that those businesses will either have to take to the bottom line or pass on to their customers.
Interestingly, the Commission has decided to delay the increase due to exceptional circumstances for awards in three key sectors: aviation, tourism and hospitality, meaning workers in those industries won't see an increase in their wages until October 1st. So big news for those struggling to get by today, with more money to be put in the hip pockets of lowest paid workers. Anne?
Taylor Aiken with that news from Canberra. Thank you, Taylor. The Fair Work Commission's minimum wage boost could soon be met with a sobering reality check, with fears inflation is set to soar. Let's bring in our Network Finance Editor, Gemma Acton. Gemma, good morning. The RBA has warned more hikes are on the way.
Good morning, Anne. Yes, the Reserve Bank is revising its forecast fairly frequently at the moment. Just last month we heard inflation would peak at 6%. Now we're told it's on track to hit 7% by year end. Governor Philip Lowe saying it's unclear how many more rate rises will be needed to bring inflation back under control. But what is clear is that we're just at the beginning of the hikes. The investment bank Goldman Sachs is today forecasting 3 more double rate hikes of 0.5% in July, August and September, followed by 3 more single rate hikes of 0.25% in October, November and December. And then that would leave us with a cash rate of 3.1% by Christmas.
We had emergency settings during the pandemic. I think that was the right thing to do, but the emergency's over. And it's time to remove the emergency settings. The peak will be in the December quarter this year, and by the time we get into the second half next year, inflation will clearly be coming down.
And look, it's another weak day for Aussie shares, but rather mild compared to yesterday's rout, which knocked more than $80 billion off the ASX 200. And the dollar has dropped once again. It's now hovering around 69 US cents. And
Finance Editor Gemma Acton. Thank you, Gemma. There are growing concerns over possible power outages in parts of the country within the coming hours as demand for electricity strips supply. The power uncertainty has already caused major disruption in Victoria as wholesale prices are capped. Nick McCallum reports.
The Australian Energy Regulator appealed for calm this morning. In New South Wales, demand is outstripping supply. There were sporadic minor power outages last night. In Victoria, warnings of blackouts yesterday and today have now been cancelled. The problem? Coal and gas shortages because of floods and the Ukraine war pushed the wholesale electricity price up to $600 per megawatt hour. The regulator has now capped that price at half that. So the generating companies are holding power back from the market because the cap means they lose money.
We're meeting with all generators today and we are reminding them of what they need to be doing. The Australian energy market operators out there encouraging generators to come back into the market.
And if the companies continue to withhold power,
we can take action in the federal court and we can get breaches of up to $10 million per breach.
Ms Savage says the long-term solution, stronger laws to help control the generating companies and greater investment in renewables.
A driver's been taken to hospital after a concrete mixer ploughed into a home in Sydney's west this morning. It happened on Cornelia Road in Toongabbie. The truck slamming into the house after first crashing into a car. There were 4 people inside at the time, but remarkably nobody was injured. The driver, aged in his 60s, was treated by paramedics and later taken to Westmead Hospital in a stable condition. Crews are this morning clearing the rubble after fire partially destroyed a Newcastle factory. More than a dozen people had to be evacuated as flames ripped through the building last night.
There was concerns of storage of paint, but the crews got to work quickly and then managed to cut the fire off.
The damage bill is thought to be around $1 million. The fire is not being treated as suspicious. Residents near Ipswich in Queensland have been warned to stay inside after a truck carrying gas bottles rolled on a highway. As Bianca Stone reports, crews spent a night locked in a battle to contain gas leaks and declared an emergency.
Good morning. It has been a very long and frustrating morning for commuters on the Warrego Highway at Ipswich, west of Brisbane. At around 1:30 this morning, a truck carrying a load of gas cylinders left the Ampol service station, tried to merge onto the Warrego Highway. His load has come loose and some of those gas bottles have fallen off.
A number of gas bottles have come off the back, 2 of which have ruptured. Another one is semi-ruptured, so it was stuck on the road for a while.
What is the concern? Was it that it could explode?
Yeah, correct. So with gas, it becomes very unstable.
Firefighters declared an emergency situation. Everyone in this black soil area was told to close their windows and doors, and the Warrego Highway was completely closed. The eastbound lanes reopened about 5 hours later, but it took more than 7 hours for the westbound lanes to reopen. This is the main thoroughfare between Brisbane and Toowoomba. Traffic was backed up for kilometres.
Amber Heard is refusing to back down after losing her defamation trial against ex-husband Johnny Depp. In her first sit-down interview since the trial, the actress blamed a social media onslaught for swaying the verdict. Our US Bureau Chief Ashley Mullaney reports.
After a jury ruled that Amber Heard defamed her ex-husband Johnny Depp by claiming he abused her, she has once again levelled allegations at him. In a talk show interview this morning, Amber Heard said she was unfairly treated, that the social media onslaught must have impacted the verdict. In this interview, she said that when you're living with violence, you have to learn to adapt. It was at times a tense interview. Savannah Guthrie, the breakfast show host, pointing out audio where Amber Heard could be heard saying that she started some of these fights.
To my dying day, will stand by every word of my testimony. We get the concept of free speech from the Greeks. My understanding of what that means is not just the freedom to speak. It's a freedom to speak truth to power.
But truth is the word.
Yes.
And that was the issue.
And that's all I spoke. And I spoke it to power, and I paid the price.
The Hollywood actress admitted that the pair of them could come across as Hollywood brats. She conceded that they had an ugly, toxic relationship and that she wasn't entirely proud of all of her behaviour too. Still, she's been ordered to pay Johnny Depp more than $10 million, money her lawyer says she simply cannot afford to pay. She now plans to appeal the decision.
Coming up next in 7 News, hospital report card, ambulance wait times blow out as the health sector battles a horror winter. Asylum seeker battle, a legal bid to block a deportation fails. And the big changes coming to Instagram, giving parents the power. A cyclist has been rushed to hospital after he was struck by a car in Sydney South. The 25-year-old suffered a head injury and cuts in the incident at Kogarah just before midnight. He wasn't wearing a helmet. The car was full of empty drink bottles and cans for a return and earn run at the time of the crash, and police are investigating whether the driver's vision was obscured. New South Wales is in the grips of an ambulance crisis as COVID and flu cases push the health sector to breaking point. In the latest report card, ambulance wait times have blown out to a record high. Tom Hartley has a story.
Yeah, and this has really been illustrated in the latest public health report card, which was released this morning, painting a pretty grim picture of the sector. To sum it up in one word, you could really say that they are struggling. And we'll have a look at some of the stats. You've got the elective surgery wait list. There now over 100,000 people on those. You've got patients waiting for longer to be treated in emergency departments, with ambulance wait times also blowing out. I mean, you've got 38% of priority 1 cases, so that's those really important life-threatening cases are only being seen within that 15-minute window, which is really integral. And there are fears, as you say, that things will get worse. You've got COVID being a perpetual problem, putting pressure on the health network, compounded by now what's appearing to be a really tricky flu season ahead.
In a major shake-up to the nation's COVID regulations, travellers may no longer need to wear masks in airports. The Australian Health Protection Principal Committee has recommended scrapping the rule, saying it doesn't need to be mandatory, although they recommend continued mask use. The rule could be dropped as early as Friday at midnight. Masks would still be required on planes. A last-ditch legal bid to stop a flight taking asylum seekers from the UK to Rwanda has failed. The flight has been cleared for takeoff and will soon depart from a military base in the country's south. The British government initially hoped to deport as many as 130 people. It's thought that number may now be as low as 7. Jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny has gone missing from the prison where he's been serving time, according to close associates. Allies of the imprisoned politician say he's likely being transferred to another prison, which could take days or weeks. Navalny is more than 1 year into an 11-and-a-half-year sentence. Hong Kong has farewelled one of its most recognised landmarks, the Jumbo floating seafood restaurant. Locals gathered to watch as the iconic floating food palace was towed away by tugboats after nearly half a century in the city's harbour. It's being moved to another location, but its future remains unclear. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and their 3 children are reportedly set to leave their London apartment to be closer to the Queen. As Europe Bureau Chief Hugh Whitfeld reports, the move could happen within weeks.
William and Kate have spent the day with the families of the victims of the Grenfell Tower fire tragedy 5 years after the deadly blaze tore through an apartment block here in London. As reports emerged, they're preparing to leave their Kensington Palace base, not far from Grenfell Tower, for Adelaide Cottage, a 4-bedroom house in the Windsor Great Park, very close to the Queen at Windsor Castle, close to Eton College, where George and Louis might be heading one day, of course, where William and Harry went to high school, and close to the Middletons, Kate's parents, who live not far away in Berkshire. It would require a change in schools for the 3 Cambridge children. And this cottage doesn't need staff and it doesn't need renovations either, so it's considered the perfect fit for the young family. Meantime, a short carriage ride away from Windsor, Charles and Camilla have led the Royal Pack at Royal Ascot, where racing has returned. They might have even watched an Aussie winner today. There was no sign of Her Majesty, though. Many of the Queen's horses running at Ascot later in the week.
Social media giant Instagram has announced a series of changes to give the power back to parents. Mums and dads will be able to limit the time their kids spend on the app and see their followers. They'll also receive notifications about inappropriate behaviour. Internal documents were leaked last year which suggest the app is damaging to the self-esteem of teenage girls. Coming up next in 7 News, we'll have sport with Matt Shervington, including breaking AFL news on a big setback for reigning premiers, the Demons, and the moment of magic from David Warner in Sri Lanka that left Aussie teammates in awe.
Good morning. We begin with breaking AFL news, and Melbourne Demons Premiership captain Max Gawn is set for a stint on the sidelines. Scans revealed a high ankle sprain, and while he won't require surgery, the club say he'll miss up to 5 weeks. At the Tigers, coach Damien Hardwick confirmed Dustin Martin is highly unlikely to play against Carlton tomorrow night due to illness. Last night, Games record holder Brent Harvey and St Kilda champion Nicky Winmar were among 8 inductees to the Australian Football Hall of Fame. Port Adelaide's Russell Ebert was elevated to legend status. Ryan Pappenhausen's NRL return is on hold. The Storm fullback will miss Friday's clash with the Broncos after testing positive to COVID. Pappenhausen has been sidelined since round 9 with knee and hamstring injuries. Blues star Daniel Tupou and Kotoni Staggs may have to choose between playing for New South Wales or Tonga. They've been named in the Tongan squad for their test against New Zealand on Saturday week, the day before Origin 2. Brad Fittler names his squad on Sunday. He may be turning 36 in a few months, but David Warner's as lively as ever.
Could be out. Oh, that's unbelievable! What a catch that is by David Warner.
Ashton Agar couldn't believe his eyes. Test skipper Pat Cummins went wicketless on his return from a hip injury in the first one-dayer against Sri Lanka. Chasing a rain-reduced 282, Glenn Maxwell kept his cool after a mini batting collapse. His unbeaten 80 off 51 balls, guiding Australia to a 2-wicket win. An English batting collapse looked on the cards on the final day of the second test against New Zealand. At 3 for 56, up-stepped Johnny Bairstow.
Stand and deliver, Johnny Bairstow.
Chasing 299 off only 72 overs, Bairstow smashed England's second fastest test ton from 77 balls. His 136, along with an unbeaten 75 from skipper Ben Stokes, giving the hosts a 5-wicket win and an unassailable 2-0 series lead. Our World Cup-bound Socceroos fly back into Australia this evening to celebrate with family after yesterday's dramatic playoff win against Peru.
Obviously, we've enjoyed the night and the celebrations. Some of the boys are still going downstairs at the pool. But, yeah, I don't think it's really sunk in yet. It's probably going to take a few days.
New Zealand won't be joining us in Qatar. They lost their playoff against Costa Rica 1-0 for the final place at the World Cup. Cam Smith's confident he can break his major drought at this week's US Open in Brookline in Massachusetts. The Aussie world number 6 says he's getting much more support from tour crowds after his win at the Players' Championship in March.
So I think there's a little bit of a different vibe on the golf course as well towards me. I think there's maybe a few more people rooting for me, which is nice.
The US Open starts tomorrow night. Serena Williams will make her long-awaited return to tennis at Wimbledon in just under a fortnight. The 23-time Grand Slam champion announced to her All-England comeback on social media. Williams hasn't played since Wimbledon last year because of a knee injury. Nick Kyrgios is through to the second round of the lead-up event in Germany, where he'll take on world number 6 Stefanos Tsitsipas. Chris Waller's nature strip has once again shown he's the world's best sprinter. With royalty watching on day 1 at Royal Ascot, James McDonald piloted the Everest winner to victory in the Group 1 King Stand Stakes, but unfortunately the caller couldn't get his name right.
Nature Stripe leading to Acklam Express in second place. Twilight Course coming home in third position, but it is the great Australian sprinter, Nature Stripe and James McDonald, and look how far they've won by.
It's Australia's first Royal Ascot win since Black Caviar in 2012. I bet that caller wants to have another crack at that race, that's for sure. Well, he didn't get the name right.
A win's a win.
Nature Strip got it also right.
Yes, thank you. Coming up next in 7's Morning News, we'll have the national weather forecast for you.
This weather report brought to you by Bridgestone Select for tyres and car servicing.
There was a special treat for stargazers overnight with a supermoon shining in the night sky. Reaching its peak just before 10 last night, the bright showstopper was also labelled a strawberry supermoon, appearing in North America's strawberry harvesting season. NASA says the event was the perfect opportunity for astronomers to better understand the moon and its phases. Taking a look at the weather around the country now, a trough may bring heavy showers, strong winds and possible storms to southern South Australia, western Victoria and Tasmania. A trough will cause showers in northwest WA. Onshore winds will bring showers to southeast and northern Queensland and also to the southwest of WA. So around the capitals today, a partly cloudy day in Brisbane, a top of 22 degrees. For Sydney, a sunny day and 19. Morning frost, then partly cloudy in Canberra, 12 degrees today. Showers in Melbourne, a top of 13 degrees. A shower or two in Hobart, a top of 12. Showers in Adelaide, 17 degrees. A shower or two in Perth and 20. And mostly sunny in Darwin, 33 degrees. That's 7 News to now. We'll keep you up to date throughout the day. Our next major bulletin is coming up at 4 p.m. I'm Ann Sanders. Thanks for your company. Have a lovely day.